Taoiseach, Israel's merciless military attack on the people of Gaza continues. An attack that has killed more than 11,000 Palestinians, including more than 4,500 children, more than 3,000 women. A child killed every 10 minutes in full sight of the world. Gaza, a graveyard for innocent children. Israel's bombardment has destroyed Gaza's health infrastructure. Hospitals are running out of fuel and electricity needed to power vital equipment. Maternity, cancer care, all care decimated. As the wounded and dying pour in, hospitals try to keep going to the sound of gunfire, tank fire and air raids. Doctors on the ground have reported Israeli snipers targeting hospital staff and shooting people as they flee. At Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital, doctors were forced to carry out surgeries, C-sections, emergency amputations without anaesthetic or access to antibiotics or clean water. They ran out of medicine needed to treat children with the most horrific burns. People bled to death because the hospital couldn't access fresh blood. Newborn babies died because incubators stopped working. Thousands of displaced Palestinians live on the corridors, the stench of decomposing bodies everywhere, hanging in the air as testament to the horror inflicted on the people of Gaza. This is the hospital, Taoiseach, that Israel relentlessly besieged for days and then stormed last night. Taoiseach, this is not defence. The Irish government must refer Israel to the International Criminal Court. Israel must be held accountable. There must be immediate ceasefires. This is the only thing that will transform this horrific situation. Taoiseach, I'm heartened by the news that Irish citizens are leaving Gaza via the Rafah crossing. Can I say also that the hostages must be freed immediately? Yesterday, I met with Tom, the father, and Natalie, the sister of little Emily Hand. Their agony and trauma is unbearable. Emily will turn 9 on Friday, and she should be back with her family for her birthday. You have rightly described Israel's actions as collective punishment, not self-defence. You've also said that Israel's actions cannot be without consequence, and I welcome that, but you haven't outlined what those consequences will be. Refusing to refer Israel to the International Criminal Court, Taoiseach, is a cop-out, and a dangerous one at that. It emboldens Israel in its violation of international law and its trampling on the human rights of Palestinians. Condemnation isn't enough. The message has to be that Ireland will act when international humanitarian law is shredded, when a civilian refugee population is slaughtered en masse by one of the most ferocious military forces on earth. So I ask you to act, Taoiseach, and tell us what consequences Israel will face for the atrocities it commits before the eyes of the world.
Well, I agree with the call for a ceasefire for reasons that I've outlined in the past. It's important that if there is a ceasefire, that it's honoured by all sides, Israel, Hamas, Islamic Jihad and other protagonists in this conflict, and it will allow aid to get in and citizens of this country and other countries to get out, and also perhaps peace talks to begin. In relation to the International Criminal Court, there is already an investigation underway. It's been underway for several years now. Referring Israel to the International Criminal Court at this stage, when an investigation is already underway, will be akin to reporting an alleged crime to the Gardaí several years into an investigation. It simply would have no practical effect or practical value. Also, your proposal is flawed because your proposal is to refer Israel to the International Criminal Court, not the situation on the ground, and that allows Hamas and Islamic Jihad off the hook. Perhaps that's your intention. Perhaps that's an omission, but it is not. But it is not the. It is not. It is not the correct approach, Deputy. It is not the correct approach, Deputy. Not the correct approach. And those are the two reasons why we think your proposal would be of no use and would be unbalanced. What we are going to do, Deputy, is provide an additional €3 million to the International Criminal Court. This will be of practical assistance and will help them to gather the evidence and carry out any prosecutions that are necessary. I just want to reiterate the government's condemnation without equivocation of Hamas's terrorist attack on Israel on October 7th, which began this phase of the conflict. They sought to kill and torture as many civilians as possible without any mercy. There's no equivalence or no excuse for that. They provoked and perhaps even hoped for what has followed. 3 things have to happen now. Hamas should release all of the hostages, particularly the children, including Emily Hand, the Irish hostage who we believe is being held in tunnels in Gaza at the moment. They should lay down their arms because they are a terrorist organisation, and I hope Sinn Féin in your reply will support me in both those calls. Secondly, while Israel has a right to defend itself, this is not self-defence, this is collective punishment, this is disproportionate, it is wrong. And that is why there should be a ceasefire immediately to be observed by all sides so that the killing can stop, so that aid can get in, so that hostages can be released, and so that our citizens can get out. And we also, Deputy, need a new peace process, one that ensures that Palestinians control Gaza once this conflict is over, or this phase of the conflict is over, one that is based on a two-state solution. We don't have agreement at European Union level when it comes to much in relation to this conflict, but we do at long last have clear agreement from all EU member states that there should be a two-state solution. And for far too long, European countries and the European Union have been willing to aid the Palestinians and trade with the Israelis without pressing either side to do what they need to do. And when this phase of the conflict's over, we need a more active approach from the European Union, pushing for a two-state solution, saying to the Palestinians that we're not going to continue to give you aid if you don't respect democracy and human rights and crack down on terrorism, and saying to the Israelis that we're not willing to continue to trade with you in the way that we do if you're not willing to be serious about a two-state solution and allowing the Palestinians the right to have the state that they need and they deserve. In terms of the Irish citizens, which you mentioned, I can confirm that a first group of Irish citizens and their dependents has been cleared to exit through the Rafah crossing from into Egypt today. Arrangements are in place for staff from the Irish Embassy in Cairo to meet them and to provide them with consular assistance and support, including onward travel back to Ireland. We expect additional Irish citizens and dependents in Gaza to be on the list in the coming days, and we're working tirelessly to ensure that all of those who wish to do so will be allowed to leave as soon as possible. Government's been very active on this issue, particularly the Taoiseach and I. We've met with the Palestinian Prime Minister, the Egyptian Foreign Minister, also the Israeli Ambassador, and I know they all had a certain role to play in making today possible, and I do want to acknowledge that.
Not alone can I echo the call for ceasefires and the release of hostages. I just remind you I actually preempted your calls for those very, very things. There is no controversy on those matters. All of the violence must stop, and it must stop now. Not humanitarian pauses, not humanitarian windows, a cessation to all violent actions. I would remind you that Israel is the dominant party in what is an asymmetrical conflict, to use the terminology, Count Corla. But also say this to you, and let me ask you this, because you've used the term collective punishment, disproportionate, not self-defence, all violations of international law. Israel doesn't care about international law. Israel doesn't care. Why? Because Israel is never, ever, ever held to account. You are being very disingenuous as regards the International Criminal Court. When it came to Ukraine and Putin's violation of international, correctly, there were multiple complaints to the International Criminal Court, correctly. Why is Israel different? Why is it that the international community cannot state the truth that the world has seen with its own eyes as Palestinians are massacred? Why is it that Israel cannot be held to account? Your own words reflect the damning analysis that Israel is in repeated violation of international law. This stage, your government can make a referral to the International Criminal Court, Taoiseach, and you should, and you will enjoy the support of everybody in this chamber and the entire country if you have the courage of the truth and justice to take that action.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear.
Deputy, I've explained the position. This is not the same as Ukraine. An investigation is already underway in relation to potential war crimes. Please, may I speak? No, just may I speak? It's a very clear and consistent approach from Sinn Féin towards the government, towards other opposition parties, towards the media. Shout them down or sue them. Yeah. Well, this is a parliament, this is a democracy, and I'm going to be heard. Yeah. It is a serious issue, so may I be heard without being threatened, with legal action or being shouted down? Would that be possible? This is still a democracy, Deputy, and we're not going to let you take away our democracy through your threats or your activities. I can guarantee you that. May I speak? Thank you. I've explained the situation very clearly. This is not the same as Ukraine because an investigation into potential Israeli war crimes in the Palestinian territories is already underway. That is the position. We support that investigation. We provide millions in funding to the International Criminal Court so they can gather the evidence and take prosecutions into the future, and I very much hope that happens.